Deese, head of the President's National Economic Council. Brian, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you, sir. Let's start with the latest jobs numbers. In March, the economy added 916,000 new jobs, and the unemployment rate fell to 6% flat. And that was before the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill and the spike in vaccinations. Question, given all that, does the country need another $2 trillion in federal spending in this bill and trillions more in another bill that the president is going to lay out sometime in the next few weeks? We're talking about another at least $4 trillion in more government spending.
Well, the jobs numbers in March were certainly a welcome sign. It's good to see the economy starting to improve, and we certainly think that it's a sign that the economic and vaccination strategy that this administration has put into place from day one is starting to have an impact. But we have a long way to go. We still are down 8.4 million jobs from where we were a year ago. We have millions of people out of work. More than 2 million women have left the labor force because they've had to choose between caring for their family members and their jobs. And so we have a long way to go. What our plan says is let's keep the economy going. Let's see more job creation. That's a really good thing for the economy. But let's also think to the longer term about where are those investments that we can make that will really drive not just more job growth, but better job growth. Not just job growth in the short term, but job growth in the long term by investing in our infrastructure, by investing in our research and development in a way that we haven't since the 1960s. If we do that, we think we can not only have a strong job rebound this year, but we could sustain it over many years. That's the goal.
Let's talk about this. The White House basically calls this an infrastructure bill, and yes, there are hundreds of billions of dollars for roads and highways and bridges and for some other things that I think you can argue are infrastructure, like expanding broadband. But there are also some other parts of this bill, and I want to put them up. $213 billion for housing, $400 billion for taking care of the elderly and disabled. Brian, those may well be worthy projects, but they're not infrastructure.
Well, look, I think we really need to update what we mean by infrastructure for the 21st century. If you look at that number on housing, what we're talking about is construction, building housing all around the country to help make sure that there are more affordable housing units for people to access jobs and access economic opportunity. We're talking about construction to build things like VA facilities, our schools and community colleges, putting people to work, construction work that really needs to be done to meet commitments that we have to our veterans and others. We believe that the infrastructure of our care economy is something we have to take very seriously. If for anybody out there, many of your viewers who are parents, who are taking care of an elderly parent or an adult child with disabilities, they know that if you don't have an infrastructure of care to support your loved ones, you can't effectively work. You can't effectively interact in the 21st century economy. So we think investing in the infrastructure of care.
Brian, I'm not going to argue about whether or not it's a worthy project, but the infrastructure of care, you're really stretching the word beyond all meaning. What you're doing is you're going to pay people to take care of the elderly and disabled. I mean, it's a social program.
Well, we're going to invest in building child care facilities. We're going to invest in upgrading home and community-based care facilities. We're going to invest in our VA hospitals. We're going to invest in putting people to work, building and addressing deferred maintenance and addressing the lack of access to this type of care that keeps parents from being able to work, that keeps families from being able to work. That will create more jobs. It'll create more opportunity for people to get into the workforce. It'll expand our economy's potential.
The president says that this bill is paid for with $2 trillion in increased corporate taxes. But you pay for 8 years of spending with 15 years of taxes. And Brian, this is, as you well know, this is a classic Washington gimmick, because when you're paying for 8 years of spending with 15 years of taxes, the fact is the Biden administration, it will be long gone, and a new president will be in, and a new Congress will be in, and oftentimes they repeal those tax increases.
No, I think it's just the opposite. This is a capital investment. What we're talking about with the infrastructure plan is a one-time 8-year capital investment. And just like any good business or even a family would make a capital investment, you make that up front and then you pay for it over time. What we're saying is that we would pay for it over a 15-year period. And in fact, it's fiscally responsible over the long term because it would actually reduce debt after that 15-year period as well. Look, we get that we're going to have a conversation about how we need to pay for this investment and other investments. The president laid out his plan. One thing he was very clear on this week is he would like to hear other people's ideas. If people think that this is too aggressive, then we'd like to hear what their plans are. It's something we want to have a conversation about. But this is a responsible way to pay for a significant capital investment, which itself will return multiples in terms of the private investment it will unlock. We see analysts from across the spectrum saying that we make investments in things like our ports and airports will unleash significant private investment as well. We think it's a reasonable thing to pay for that across time, but you don't have to do it year for year.
I want to pick up on exactly your point because the president made it clear he's willing to negotiate. He's willing to compromise. Here he is this week.
I'm going to bring Republicans into the Oval Office, listen to them, what they have to say, and be open to other ideas.
Is the president willing, you say he's willing to compromise, is he willing to come down, and if so, how far from the $2.25 trillion spending bill that he's talking about here, from the price tag? And in terms of paying for it, is he willing, instead of corporate taxes, to do what usually is done with infrastructure, which is to base it on user fees, whether it's increasing the gas tax or a new mileage tax?
Well, the president has put forward his plan. Some people have said it's too much. Some people have said it's too little. We think it's just right. About $2 trillion over 8 years, investing in core drivers of growth, like our roads and bridges, like high-speed internet, like research and development. And what he said, and as you say, we want to have this conversation. We're starting the outreach already. I've talked to dozens of members of Congress over the course of this week. Well,
how far is he willing? How far is he willing to go down? I mean, when he talked about COVID relief, it was $1.9 trillion. That's where he began. That's where he ended. Is he really willing to come down substantially below $2.25 trillion? Is he willing to consider other pay-fors, like instead of corporate taxes?
I'm not going to negotiate that on this show. I would say this is a good faith effort. We want to hear where other people are. We want to get people's reactions to this package, both in the specifics and in the overall. On the tax side, the president has laid out what he believes to be a very common sense and reasonable way to do this. Our corporate tax system is broken. It remains broken. The 2017 tax law made things worse. There's a lot of sensible reform we could do there that would also generate revenue across time. If people have different approaches to that, he's open to doing it. The one thing that he's been very clear about is he does not believe that we should raise taxes on people making less than $400,000 a year, and he doesn't believe we should fund investments on the backs of the working people in the bottom half of the income distribution, many of whom have been hit terribly hard through this COVID crisis. So those are his principles, and he wants to hear what other people's ideas are.
Let me talk to you about another aspect of this, which is you've got a lot of opposition inside the Democratic Party, and in the House, you can only lose 3 votes. In the Senate, you can't lose any votes and pass this measure. Moderate Democrats in the House are saying they will not vote for this package unless that you're willing to lift the cap on deductions for state and local taxes. And then you've got people on the left who say this isn't big enough. Take a look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez this week.
We're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. So we can do 10 trillion.
Are those negotiable? Not 2 trillion, 10 trillion, the cap on deductions for state and local taxes?
Look, we've said we want to hear people's ideas, and this is the beginning of the process. We were just talking about how to pay for it. Those are both ideas that would cost more, so we'd want to hear how people are thinking about how they would offset those ideas. So what I would say is this is a good faith effort. We want to hear people's ideas. We think that investing about $2 trillion over this period would make a huge difference. You look at just the analyses we've seen this week. Moody's suggests it would create 19 million jobs. Goldman Sachs is projecting more than 7% growth this year if we pass the investment and the corporate tax plan. So we think we have a really opportunity to do something big here. And we got to get into that and listen to people's ideas, and that's something we're going to be open to.
Well, we got a lot of time to discuss it. You in Congress and us on this show. Brian, thank you. Thanks for your time this weekend. Please come back.